Get by with a little help for our friends. So I'm not going to go on too long. I would like to introduce our first speaker. His name is Alex Brown. As I mentioned to you, he's a self-improvement writer. He is also a speaker. He works and is helping people to cultivate decisiveness. I love that, man. Like, make a decision, you know? And he channel discipline and then to control their direction in life. And so can you all give a big hand to Alex Brown, everybody? He's going to bring it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I got a question for you guys today, for all you fine gentlemen. How do you empower greatness? What do you need to do in order to bring out the best within yourself? To answer that question, I want to share a quick story with you guys. So the year was 2008. I was 16 years old at the time. And this was a very strange time in my life because I was very shy, insecure, nervous, you name it, I was the whole kit and caboodle. And I was always that kid that was off in the corner. Didn't have a lot of friends, and the friends that I did have, they were kind of come and go. They weren't solid, they weren't the rock that every man needs. And so by the time I got to high school, I was really looking for that. I was craving it. I wanted that in my life. And lucky me, I found it. The only problem was, it was in all the wrong places. So I befriended a group of young kids, and you know, they weren't bad kids by any means, but they weren't exactly the best influence on me either. And so over time, the more I hung out with them and got to know them, I started taking on their behaviors, their attitudes, their mindsets. And it began with something as innocent enough as just smoking a little bit of weed. Little puff here, little puff there, not a big deal, right? Big things always start small. And it goes in opposite directions, on polar opposites, positive, negative. And so as I start smoking, I start also bad-mouthing my teachers in school. I start skipping school. I start drinking. I start partying. And before you know it, I drop out of school altogether. Now, this is where I had a little bit of a saving grace. I had my mother, and you know, like any mother, she wanted to see her son do well. And so she convinced me to go back. And I was like, okay, you know what? I want to make mama proud. I decided to go back. But here's the thing. Nothing changed. I was still the same person. I still had the same attitude, the same mindset, the same mentality, the same behaviors and habits, the same friends. Nothing about me was different. So what do you think happened?
Nothing.
There you go. I dropped out again. I dropped out again for the second time. And this time I decided to do something different. I decided, you know what, let's give this whole job thing a try. After all, that's what everybody else is doing, right? They got a job, they're working that 9 to 5. You know, I wanted to see if I could hack it. So I go out and I spend the next 2 years jumping from job to job to job to job, never able to hold anything down for any longer than a couple of months. A failure at every single one of them. And so at the end of this 2 years, I decide, you know what, maybe school is probably a good idea. You guys see a pattern here? So I go back to school. The only problem is, I'm 19 years old now. So I can't go back to my original high school. I'm too old. And so I attend this outreach program that allows kids to get the equivalent of a high school diploma. And for the first few months of me attending, things are actually going pretty well. I'm showing up on time, I'm doing my assignments. Some of the teachers even like me, which quite frankly was a first. Yeah, wow, right? Yeah. It was a first. And it didn't take long afterward, though, before old habits began creeping in. We know the saying, old habits die hard. I was the poster child for that saying. And so, after about 6 or 7 months, I began doing the same thing, smoking weed, hanging out with delinquents, and sure enough, after about 6 or 7 months, I drop out for the third and final time. In my infinite wisdom, I decided that school just wasn't for me. Call it limiting beliefs, poor self-esteem, whatever the case may be, I dropped out for that third time. And I'll never forget the day it hit me. I was sitting in my living room with my family. We were all watching this movie together, And while they were laughing along with the film, enjoying the movie, I was sitting there fuming. I could not believe that I had strayed so far. I could not believe that I had allowed myself to be such a loser, such a waste of space. I mean, there I was, guys. A lazy, unmotivated, pot-smoking, 3-time high school dropout. No discipline, no structure, no ambition, no goals, no job, no money, no friends at this point, mind you. I had nothing. And with no means of contributing to the household, I was essentially just a burden on my family. They didn't say those words, and quite frankly, they didn't have to because I felt it. And that created so much pain inside me that I just knew I could not do this anymore. Something had to change. And that something was me. And so I decided, you know what? I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what I have to do. I am going to turn this around. I am not going to be this loser. I am not going to be this person anymore. I deserve better. It took a while, but eventually I did get things turned around. I found myself a decent job. I started making money. I began paying my own way, my rent, my groceries, my cell phone, everything. I was finally a functional adult for once. And me taking that step to improve myself, I had developed a bit of a foundation that I could stand on, that I could now navigate the world on. And I felt pretty good about that. And so I started asking myself, what else could I do? What else do I want? What is it that would be really, really cool if I could have it? And as already mentioned, I decided that I was going to go into making music. As a kid, I loved rap music. I loved it. I was immersed in it. In fact, when I would go to one of Canada's top digital marketing agencies, I self-published my first book. I kept on going. What's next? What do you want to do, Alex? What is in your head? What is in your heart? What do you want to do? Well, let's challenge myself. Let's push it. I ran 2 full marathons. I ran 4 half marathons. I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a martial art and combat sport. This eventually led me to traveling, just selling all of my possessions, relinquishing my apartment and traveling to Southeast Asia, where I trained at some of the top martial arts academies on the continent. I trained in Singapore, Thailand, the Maldives, Kuala Lumpur, everywhere. When I came back to Canada a couple months later, I landed a job as an instructor, a martial arts instructor at my academy. And I also earned my blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Not bad for a pot-smoking 3-time high school dropout, right? So why do I share this with you? What is the point of all this? What am I trying to get at? There is greatness in everybody. We all have something within us that needs to be brought out. It's innate, it's natural. We are born to be great. We are creators. We are destined to think of something, to cultivate something that is emotionally compelling to us and start moving toward it every day. The only thing is we have all of these negative beliefs and limiting thoughts in our minds just holding us back from what it is that we truly want to do with our lives. And so now I want to revisit that question that I asked at the start of this talk. How do you empower greatness? From my experience, there are 3 lessons that I learned that empowered my greatness that I want to share with you right here and right now. Lesson number 1, have an aim. Have an aim. When I was that 3-time dropout, smoking weed every single day, you might say that I became that way because of the friends I was hanging with, because of the habits that I had, because of the poor attitude, the limiting beliefs, and you know, there's validity to that notion, but it's not the entire answer. Those were simply the symptoms of something that was just lurking beneath the surface. And what that was a lack of a definite aim. I had no goal, I had no purpose, I had no mission, I had nothing. And because of that, I was attempting to fill that void with cheap pleasures and instant gratification. We need an aim. And it can be anything. It could be losing 20 pounds. It could be writing a book. It could be starting a business. It could be increasing your income. Maybe you want to hit a certain number with your income. Whatever it is, what do you want? You can't hit anything if you aren't aiming at it. If you don't have a name, you're a ship without a rudder. And what happens to rudderless ships, gentlemen? They end up on the rocks, or they sink. That was me. I was that rudderless ship when I dropped out of school for the third and final time, and was that pathetic, weak weasel mooching off of everybody around him without giving. I know that's not you. I'm just trying to prove a point. Lesson number 2 that I learned. Do something every day. My life did not change when I set up a bunch of new goals for myself. It changed when I started taking action every single day toward those goals. My first mentor shared a quote with me that I'll never forget. He said, "It's not what you do every now and then that makes a difference in your life. It's what you do every single day on a consistent and regular basis." You need that consistency. You need to show up every single day for yourself, for your goals, for whatever it is that you're aiming at. And here's the beautiful thing. It doesn't need to be anything drastic. You don't need to revolutionize everything overnight. It doesn't have to be that way. In fact, that's a perfect recipe for failure. You're biting off more than you can chew. You're gonna fail when you do that. But if you just did bit by bit, day by day, a little bit here, a little bit there, and you would be absolutely shocked and astounded where you can be in 3-5 years down the line. I promise you. Start moving forward every single day, little by little, inch by inch. You'll get to where you want to go. And the third lesson that I learned that helped me to empower my greatness was be the hero. We all had our favorite Cape Crusaders when we were kids growing up. That superhero who saved the people in need right at the last minute. Well, guess what? Life is not a comic book strip. No one is coming to save you. Not your friends, not your family, not the government, no one. It is all on you. And that's actually a really cool thing. Because it means that you are in control. The second that you abdicate responsibility for your life and try to pass the blame on somebody else, pass the buck, that's the exact second that you lose, you forfeit your power to do anything about your current condition. But when you decide, hey, this is my problem, this is my fault, I got myself in here, I'm going to get myself up, I'm going to take ownership, then you instantaneously reclaim that power. You bring it back into its rightful place, where it belongs, which is in your own hands. Be the hero. Take ownership for everything, good and bad, even if it's not your fault. Because guess what? It actually is your fault. And that's a good thing. In closing, I'd like to leave you all with just a few words of encouragement. When you can move into the world with using these principles, these ideas, have an aim, do something every day that's going to bring you just a bit closer toward that aim, and being your own hero, taking ownership for everything in your life, when you do this, something really interesting starts to happen. Other people see you progressing, they see you improving, they see you making progress, and this is encouraging to them. And you, by default, give them permission to do the exact same thing in their lives. People want to improve, they really do, but sometimes they don't believe it's possible for them. And by you acting in alignment with what it is that you want in your life and making strides toward it, people see that it's like, hey, maybe that is in the cards for me. And it has a ripple effect where it spreads out to everybody around you. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can give to others. And that is how you empower greatness within yourself and those around you. Thank you.
Hey.
That was awesome. Hey, give him a big hand, you guys. You guys can do better than that. That was awesome. Very, very, very inspiring. Very inspiring. You know, you said something there. I mean, you said a whole bunch of things, Alex, so thank you for that. One of the